You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kirby, who is your daddy and what does he do? Who is your daddy and what does he do? Now, I'm being really serious right now. That was a good game by the Georgia Bulldogs. They were okay. I mean, it was really a game that Ole Miss started off about as bad as they could. Okay, they started off legitimately about as bad as they could, but they have turned that in to being an absolutely dominant team. Ole Miss went 3 and out in the first drive, hurt the quarterback, okay? Jaxson Dart was injured. All the Ole Miss fans on Twitter, you looked what was going on there, like, oh my goodness, what is happening here? This is absolutely nuts. This is something we should all be paying attention to. It's like, my goodness, woe is me. Yeah. We've all seen this before. And then Austin Simmons, of all people, comes into the football game. Austin Simmons comes into the football game. And everybody knows that has listened to my podcast for any extended period of time, how I feel about what Austin Simmons can be. And how I've described him as Tua plus 4 inches this year. And he proceeded to lead Ole Miss down the field for a touchdown to tie the game back up. I don't think anybody realizes how huge that is. So with all the credit that I'm going to give Jaxson Dart in this thing, because while his numbers wasn't spectacular, he threw for roughly 200 yards, led the team in rushing, all of that stuff. That Austin Simmons series might be the biggest series in the history of Ole Miss football, because that opened everything up. That series by Austin Simmons showed everybody what the future holds and what Ole Miss has as a backup quarterback. He was phenomenal on that drive, even in high-pressure situations. If anything else, he showed Jaxson Dart the blueprint of what Ole Miss offensively needed to do in that game. Jaxson Dart came back in. They started doing quick game and all of that stuff, and Ole Miss offensively just took over Georgia. They made Georgia's defense not look like Georgia's defense. That is what was going on in that game. And make no mistake, in the second half of that game, Ole Miss was running clock. Ole Miss was not doing tempo. Lane Kiffin coached winning football tonight. I have been all over him essentially this season about, does he want to coach winning football or does he want to be an offensive genius? He coached winning football tonight. He coached a dang near perfect game. The offensive game plan was perfect. The defensive game plan was perfect. He took the field goals over and over again. Caden Davis with 15 points in this game. Caden Davis did everything possible to expand on Ole Miss. So all of a sudden the run game wasn't as much of a problem because Georgia couldn't score. And listen, we were all freaked out after that first drive. Jaxson Dart threw the interception. He injured himself and all of that. It's like, oh my crap, here we go again. But Georgia got the ball, and this was the warning sign. It took 7 hard-fought plays for Georgia to take that sudden change and score a touchdown. 7 plays. That is when I knew it was going to be difficult for the Georgia Bulldogs and how this was going to be a different type game. And Ole Miss's defense just completely took over tonight. Ole Miss's defense looked like how Georgia's defense normally looks, how Georgia's defense looked against the Texas Longhorn. That is how Ole Miss's defense looked tonight. Ole Miss tonight looked like the best team in the country. Now, I'm not saying whether or not Ole Miss can replicate that. I'm not saying whether or not that Ole Miss is going to be guaranteed winning national championship. But if Ole Miss plays like this 6 more times, because there's 4 playoff games, because Ole Miss is going to have to travel on the road in that first playoff game. But you have Florida, which is going to be a trap. You'll see DJ Lagway in that game, but that's a game that you'll be favored in to win. Mississippi State is another game that you'll be favored in to win. And then you have the playoff game. And if Ole Miss plays like they did tonight, they are not losing again this season. I do not care who lines up on the other side of them. They are not losing. That is the best defensive line in the whole country. Georgia could not block that defensive line. That's a group full of NFL players lined up on the offensive line, coached by the same people that put 52-17 on Ole Miss a year ago in Athens. Ole Miss, after that game, decided that, hey, we need to hit the transfer portal and look for a certain player because we want to compete with these guys. Well, you know what? Tonight, they not only competed with the Georgia Bulldogs, they absolutely freaking dominated. They dominated this game, and everybody got to see it on ABC. You got Alabama and LSU on right now, and that's another elimination game. But Ole Miss is completely in control of their own destiny right now in the college football playoff because of what they did. And I realize that I'm yelling right now, so I do apologize about that. But I am so freaking excited about what this team has done. Ole Miss, I think, and I think I'll go to the grave, I will die on this hill, but they didn't start off SEC play very strong. I don't think that's like, telling stories out of school or anything like that. They didn't start off overly strong. And that was because in spring practice, they were so afraid of the depth chart. They were so afraid of that secondary transfer portal window, and they were trying to get to the fall. If they could just get past that secondary transfer portal window without losing any of these players, everything would be in a good shape. So they had the kinder, gentler fall camp, and that caused them to not really be ready. And you heard Lane Kiffin talk about going into the Kentucky game. He was worried about whether or not his team is ready. The game against LSU, Jaxson Dart with his Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader thing, to where basically in Ole Miss history right now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be real with everybody right now. If Ole Miss makes the playoff, that press conference of Jaxson Dart dressed like Anakin Skywalker with the hood saying we've got to win out is going to be the same as Tim Tebow and his crying, you'll never see anybody try any harder than us. That is his moment. That is his legacy. And Jaxson Dart and Lane Kiffin have finally had a legacy-defining win in this thing. Like I said, they completely dominated the Georgia Bulldogs. This team that went into Austin, Texas, and completely basically held court over the Texas Longhorns. That wasn't the case in Oxford. And I tried to tell everybody on the SEC Squad show and all of my podcasts all week, Georgia was walking into a buzzsaw this week. And everybody's like, well, Georgia is going to be able to handle Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Go back and listen to the SEC Squad show and see exactly what other SEC hosts think about Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Georgia walked into a buzzsaw, and we all saw what happened. Georgia offensively couldn't do anything. There was nothing they could do. It was a situation to where Ole Miss could have played 12 quarters, and Georgia was never going to score a touchdown after that hard-fought early touchdown. The defense just owned them. They dominated. Ole Miss dominated the Georgia Bulldogs. And this is a Georgia team that coming into this game had won 52 straight games against teams not named Alabama. They're not named Alabama. They won 52 straight games. Ole Miss just absolutely dominated. And now Ole Miss is in complete control of their playoff destiny. So we're going to read the stats in just a second. So stick around for that. We're going to go over what's going on and try to make a read on this game. And then we're going to take your comments for the last 15 minutes or so of the show. It's going to be a 30-minute program. Hang tight. We'll get to you. Stick around. All right, I need to bring this up because I did not move it from the previous one. I apologize. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find the best professionals for the role, right? That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They've got the tools to help you find the right candidates for your team faster and for free, like Lane Kiffin or Jaxson Dart or Austin Simmons. You could find candidates like that on LinkedIn. From my own experience, when I was hiring for my team, I knew how important it would be to have quality candidates lined up. So with LinkedIn Jobs, I was able to find top-notch professionals quickly, which saved me so much time. Their platform made it easy to shift through and find the perfect fit. What sets LinkedIn Jobs apart, it's not just a job board. LinkedIn connects you with professionals you cannot find anywhere else. Many of them might not actively be job hunting, but they're open to the right opportunity if it comes along. In fact, Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not searching on LinkedIn, you're missing out. Plus, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours on LinkedIn. Ready to make the right hire? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's look at the stats of this game because it's going to tell an interesting story of what you can see in this football game. So we're going to bring that up real quick and look at what's going on. Let's see. Let's see if we can make that a little bit bigger. Make that a little bit bigger for everybody to see it. There we go. So Carson Beck was 20 of 31, 64%, 186 yards, and an interception. He was sacked 5 times and harassed well more than that. Carson Beck did not have his A game in this game, and Ole Miss was able to affect the quarterback, and Ole Miss's defensive line was really good tonight. They were dominant. They were the best group on the field, and this was against the Georgia team that is the most talented team in all of college football. Ole Miss kind of owned them a little bit. So that's pretty cool. Georgia running the football did not run for much. They were paced by Nate Frazier, who had 12 carries for 47 yards. That's 3.9 a carry. He had a long of 8 yards and a little bit of a fumbling problem, if we're going to be honest. Georgia's leading receiver was Dominic Lovett, 4 catches for 41 yards. It just was upsetting. Jaxson Dart, though, paced the Ole Miss Rebels, 13 of 22. 199 yards as a TD and an interception on that first drive. He had a sack on that first drive. And Austin Simmons, who came in while Jaxson Dart was injured, went 5 of 6. That's 83%, 64 yards. That's 10.7 yards per attempt and led Ole Miss directly down the field. That is cool. And Austin Simmons deserves all the credit in this big moment to go with what Lane Kiffin gets and Jaxson Dart. Austin Simmons settled down Ole Miss when it could have turned sideways. And I think everybody needs to be aware of what he did. The leading rusher was Jaxson Dart, had 8 carries for 50 yards. Ulysses Bentley was 13 for 28. Dominique Thomas at the end was 9 for 24. Jordan Watkins was 3 for 20. J.J. Pekeys 1 for 9. Rashad Amos 1 for 9. Ole Miss ran for over 100 yards against Georgia. They did just enough to win the game. The running game was just enough to make the passing game effective. Ole Miss was paced in receiving with Caden Lee with 4 catches for 81 yards. Jordan Watkins had 4 for 68. Ulysses Bentley 4 for 38. Juice Wells 3 for 27 and a touchdown, a big touchdown. Caden Prescorn 1 for 26 and Daquan Wright 2 for 23. Big day for the Ole Miss receiving corps. I'm very, very, very impressed of where they are. Let's go to the team comparison real quick. Ole Miss had 19 first downs in the game. To Georgia only had 16. Passing, Ole Miss had 13 passes for first down. Georgia had 7 rushes. Georgia 7, Ole Miss 6. Georgia had 2 penalties for first, but relatively Ole Miss was clean, pretty clean. Georgia was 7 of 14 on third down. Ole Miss was 4 of 13. Third down is a Kirby Smart specialty, by the way. Ole Miss was 1 for 1 on fourth down. That was completed by Austin Simmons. Ole Miss had 395 yards in this game. Held Georgia to 245 total. 64 plays apiece. That is pretty cool. Ole Miss had 30 penalty yards, and Georgia had 20. It was, like I said, a clean game other than turnovers. Georgia had 4 fumbles in the game. They lost 2. And, of course, the interception, their death march drive that ended up them scoring no points when the game basically was over. Pretty cool stuff. Net yards passing for the team, Ole Miss 263, Georgia 186. Ole Miss was 18 of 28. Georgia was 20 of 31. All in all, you can't really complain about exactly how that looks. I'm pretty impressed about what was going on there. We're going to get into the comment section in just a second, okay? Just a second. Whenever we come back, we will talk about that. But first, I do want to tell you about Robinhood and FanDuel. So stick around for your comments for the rest of the show. Baggy. Okay. Sorry about that. We don't have a bumper. With Robinhood Gold, you do not need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA accounts. Robinhood Gold provides privileges of the high net worth for the any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. So sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing, remember, involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with all of FanDuel America. It's America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you an opportunity to have everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. This week, Vegas and FanDuel was very weird. The line was constantly at 2.5 points. Georgia was favored by. They were begging Georgia fans to bet on it, and now we see why. Ole Miss absolutely dominated that game. They knew something from the beginning, and it was a trap line, and people that fell into it. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get into the chat room for the remainder of the show. We got about 13 minutes to go through some comments and questions from the game. We have Pack and Pasture, complete game, very few mistakes, great intensity, hotty toddy from Arkansas. Yes, this was probably the best win in Ole Miss history, period. We can talk about the Alabama games all you want to. It was absolutely huge to see. Cecil Lancaster says, great game. Braves Red, who do we want to win, LSU or Bama? I don't think it matters. The loser just means one of them is going to be out. I'd like to get LSU out of the way because LSU being out of the way means that Texas A&M is out of the way they rank teams. And Alabama, they still have to play at Oklahoma, and that's a game that I absolutely think they can lose. That Auburn game has a chance to be tricky as well. So we can see exactly how that goes. Kenny Walters, hotty freaking toddy. We have a nasty defense, and Jaxson Dart is a warrior. Congrats, Lane Kiffin. Yes, Lane Kiffin and Jaxson Dart had their legacy game. If Ole Miss takes care of business versus Florida and Mississippi State, they're going to the college football playoffs, and Jaxson Dart is leaving Ole Miss the greatest quarterback in the history of the program, and Lane Kiffin is well on his way to a statue at Ole Miss right now. Will says, hotty toddy from Metairie, Louisiana. James Mendoza says, I'm stuck with the dial of destiny. And yes, I absolutely am. I always like to joke with people saying I'm not Thanos. Whenever I make a prediction and they get mad or I jump the gun or something like that, it's like, I'm not Thanos. But this dial of destiny thing is weird. It's weird. Every time I watch that movie on Friday, the team plays well on Saturday, or we get a commitment or something happens. So I'm going to have to stick with the dial of destiny for the remainder of this football season. So yeah, I know I'm stuck with it. Trent says, we dominated both sides of the ball and only had a few penalties. It's a great day to be a Reb. Fantastic day. It is probably the best win in the history of the program. Dad says, look at what a Kiffin offense can do when the quarterback stays in the pocket. Look at what Simmons did when he stayed within the system and in the pocket. Simmons was absolutely unreal. Absolutely unreal. Muddy Redneck just became a YouTube member. Thank you very much for that. Hotty toddy, how about Austin Simmons? We talked about that. He deserves all the credit. As much as Lane Kiffin's going to get, as much as Jaxson Dart's going to get, Austin Simmons deserves it because when everybody was doing here we go again, he was able to settle down and drive this football team down the field and score a touchdown. That is no small feat. And the future is oh so bright with Austin Simmons at quarterback. And Dad says the future is bright with Austin as well. Scott Bailey, hotty toddy from Guntown. That was a great game. Bubba Porter, LSU or Bama. It must be answered now. I've looked at so many schedules. I see so many paths in. I see so many paths out. I think the important thing is the loser of this game is going to be out is probably, honestly, if we're going to be real about it, LSU, because LSU has so much trouble stopping the quarterback run. Oklahoma, I think, has a real chance to beat Alabama, and I think that Auburn is going to provide a test for them as well. So that is what I think there. Mark Wall says, huge win. We definitely need better running back. Play calling up the middle for 2 isn't working. Hey, Ole Miss ran for 120 yards against Georgia. If you would have told me before the game that Ole Miss was going to run for 120 yards against Georgia, I would have laughed at you. I was thinking 60, 70 yards. So I was actually kind of impressed with what they were able to manufacture in the run game, including the touchdown in the first quarter. It wasn't all in garbage time. Sean Lee says, so glad that Ole Miss won the game, was cheering for the Rebels all the way from Malaysia. Hotty toddy. Awesome. Randy Cross says Ole Miss should be in the top 10 and tomorrow and in the college football poll. I could not agree more. Georgia should be ranked 12 or 13, forcing them to win at Tennessee. I do kind of feel sorry what we did to Tennessee because Georgia is going to come out with their hair on fire next week. Just what it is. Yeah, Cameron Hall says Dart showed heart. Austin showed he's up next. Yeah, his absolutely. I think next year's predictions and previews just went way up with what we saw from Austin Simmons. Dean says, I admit it. I thought we'd lose. Glad I was wrong. Hooper Premium. Austin looked identical to Tua Tagovailoa. Yes, I've called him for weeks now on this program. Tua plus 4 inches in height. So, yeah. CDS, I feel sorry for Tennessee next week. Yes, that's going to be crazy. Brian Scobie says Simmons was money. The game looked slow for him. He was looking around, seeing the field, so pumped for him. Defense, slow clap. They looked amazing. Hotty toddy. Ole Miss is back on track now. Luke Shaw says just dominated. The fact that Georgia got dominated the way they did, when they haven't lost to a team not named Alabama in 52 games, it was weird to see them get absolutely dominated. The last time they got dominated in that fashion was probably the last time they came to Oxford, honestly. Let's see. Thanks, Georgia, for whooping our ass last year. You really created this monster. You really did. Yeah, you really did. We wanted to see if the transfer portal thing worked. Yeah, it officially worked. Everything worked. Ole Miss is in a position to accomplish all the goals that they set at the beginning of the season. Forget the Kentucky game, forget the LSU game, all of that stuff. Ole Miss is in position to accomplish everything, and that means that this transfer portal worked. And also, everybody needs to think about this. Deuce Knight was at the game. Kylan Deere was at the game. Caleb Cunningham was at the game. Ole Miss had a massive recruiting weekend in the stadium for this game. Do not think that nothing is going to come from this. The high school recruiting is about to kind of take off because of what they saw and everything that happened. This win will set the stage for the next decade. Yeah, likely. Likely. This was a corner turning win. The most complete game so far, offense, defense, and special team, and the fans. Yeah, the fans were amazing. Over 68,000 in the stadium. I'm beginning to wonder if they can get 70 in the stadium because of the fire marshal, but that place looked packed. I mean, packed. So that was really cool. Congrats, Ole Miss fans. Lots of recruits in the house tonight. Yeah, I just talked about that. Ole Miss just played ball. Great win for the Rebels. Dad said the outside speed rush was there today, and Golding dialed up a great game. Everybody dialed up a great game. This game plan was everything you could have hoped. Tampa Zeke says, some people give all the credit to God. I give all the credit to our lucky squirrel. We need to catch that thing and take him on the road to the swamp in 2 weeks, then back to the Oxford Egg Bowl. Yeah, the thing on Twitter is like Lane's playing 4D chess, and now instead of faking injuries, he's releasing squirrels. So that's pretty cool. Trent said, agree, no ifs, ands, or buts, but this is the best defense in football. What, under 20 points per game? Yeah, it's amazing what this defense is doing right now. Amazing. Austin Simmons is the future. He looked good. SP said that. SC Scout guy says, South Carolina fan here. I just wanted to stop in and say congrats, guys. Your win against South Carolina is looking better and better after South Carolina just demolished Vanderbilt and Nashville. I'm rooting for South Carolina to win every single game left on their schedule. Period. It's not even close. I'm rooting for South Carolina to win all their games. I am going to root for Georgia to win all of their games after this. These wins, they're stacking up. All of a sudden, the Ole Miss schedule gets a little bit incrementally better, especially after what Georgia did to Texas earlier in the season. Honestly, it helped that Georgia's wide receivers has butterfingers. Yes, but yeah, it was raining. It was wet. It was hard. I talked about that over the course of the week, that Ole Miss pass game, and trusting Ole Miss in the rain was something that I was doing. Tampa Zeke says, do not let the Rebels get hot. Football edition. That feels like it's happening. It really feels like it's happening. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Dad, Florida's a trap game. Do not allow it. Luckily, it's after a bye week. This bye week is going to go by so much better than the last one. The last one was that LSU loss. This bye week is going to be, all the people is going to be paying attention to Ole Miss, because Ole Miss is a legitimate national championship contender at this point. They're not an SEC championship contender, I don't think, at this point, but they are a legitimate national championship contender. They're likely going to go on the road in the playoffs, and they'll be playing a Notre Dame or somebody like that, to where everything is in front of them and every goal that they set is there. And that's just really, really cool. The only TV they got came off the pick. Yeah, it was at the beginning. It was absolute domination. And anybody that doesn't say that has an agenda. Let's give some credit to Caden Davis. He was automatic. He was fantastic. Other than his slip on the kickoff that resulted in a poor kickoff return from Georgia, yeah, he was automatic. He was great. Such a great W. Announcers were much better this game. Yeah, there was no way they couldn't be better, because Ole Miss was just absolutely dominating the game. They couldn't even talk about how good Georgia looks, because they were just looking at this in a different way. Isaac Kessler says, we need to win against Florida and State. It could be a magical year. Seems like the Rebels are getting hot at the right time. They are absolutely peaking at the right time of the season. They remind me of the 2008 team a whole bunch right now. A whole bunch. Every time I see them play. The team that played at the end of the 2008 season, nobody thought they were losing the game. It doesn't matter. They played like number 3, number 4 Texas Tech in the Cotton Bowl and just completely took them apart. This Ole Miss team, if they play like they did tonight, is not losing to anybody. You can send Oregon, or you can send Ohio State. You can have whoever you want to line up across from this Ole Miss team. You're not winning the game against these guys. Right now, they are feeling it. We dog walk the dogs without our best receiver, without our best running back, with a badly injured quarterback, and our best defensive lineman badly injured. I've never been so proud of my Rebs in 58 years. It was fantastic, Tampa Zeke. It was fantastic to see. Again, I'm not going to be able to get through everybody's questions, but tune in tomorrow night when we do our reaction roundtable, which I guarantee you some beat writers around Ole Miss are going to tune in for. So you can come in and check out that. We'll try to get to your comments and talk about that. But we're going to be celebrating for a good bit. Everybody, the goalpost is probably on its way to the square or there right now. We're going to have to see exactly what's up. So I'm going to stop with the comments right there. I want to thank everybody that tunes into my podcast. I think I did a pretty good job of this week setting this game up. I did not think it was going to be a blowout. I did not think that Ole Miss was going to dominate the game. I thought Georgia was too good. I guess I underestimated Ole Miss. Ole Miss is putting it together. Georgia walked into a buzzsaw, and that was simply the biggest win in the program's proud history. Congratulations to Lane Kiffin. Congratulations to Glenn Boyce, to Keith Carter, to Jaxson Dart, to Austin Simmons, who we need to start putting some respect on that boy's name, because he is going to grow up and be the man next season, I think. He just came in and calmly took Ole Miss over. Congrats to David Simmons. Congrats to all the parents. Jared Ivey was absolutely phenomenal today. Congrats to all the players who put in all the work. Congrats to the player personnel people like Kelvin Bolden and all that helped put this team together, and Walker Jones after last year's Georgia Bulldogs game. Congrats to everybody. Ole Miss just absolutely dog-walked the Georgia Bulldogs, and it was just truly a great day. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you later. Hotty toddy.